shattered trust. The morning light filtered through the blinds as Sophia Mercer stirred her coffee absently, staring at the email on her tablet. What had begun as a routine check of her shared account with her husband had morphed into something else entirely. An unfamiliar hotel charge appeared on their joint credit card statement, a luxurious resort she'd never visited, dated during a time when Nathan claimed to be on a business trip to Seattle. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through the statement. It wasn't just one charge. There were dinners at intimate restaurants, jewelry purchases, and spa treatments, all in their hometown, not Seattle. Her stomach knotted as the evidence accumulated before her eyes. "Morning, babe," Nathan called as he entered the kitchen, his voice cheerful and oblivious. He placed a kiss on her forehead, his familiar cologne now seeming cloying. "Big presentation today. Might be home late." Sophia nodded, forcing a smile while closing the tablet. "Good luck," she managed, watching as he grabbed his travel mug and briefcase. Had he always been this good at lying? 15 years of marriage, and suddenly she wondered if she knew this man at all. After Nathan left, Sophia called in sick to her accounting firm. She couldn't face the office, not with her mind racing and her heart breaking. Instead, she found herself driving to the hotel from the Statement, an upscale boutique place downtown that they'd never visited together, despite living just 20 minutes away. "I'm researching venues for an anniversary party," she told the receptionist with practiced ease. "I heard your penthouse suite is stunning." The young woman smiled. "Oh, it's our most requested romantic getaway, especially popular with Mr. Mercer and his guest. They're some of our regulars." Sophia's world tilted on its axis, but she maintained her composure. "How nice. When was their last visit?" "Just last week." "Would you like to see the suite? Last week? When Nathan was supposedly in Chicago." Back home, Sophia sat in their walk-in closet, examining Nathan's suits with new eyes. In the breast pocket of his favorite gray jacket, she found a receipt for a woman's bracelet, dated 2 months ago, just before Valentine's Day. The gift she'd received had been a practical laptop bag. Her phone chimed with a text from Vanessa Mitchell, her colleague from the accounting firm. "Hope you feel better. Can I bring anything by after work?" Sophia stared at the message. Vanessa, recently divorced, always perfectly dressed, with a habit of mentioning Nathan in conversation. Vanessa, who had taken the same days off as Nathan's supposed business trips more than once. That evening, Sophie drove to Vanessa's upscale apartment complex, telling herself she was being paranoid. But as she pulled into the visitor parking, Nathan's luxury sedan sat in plain view, parked in the resident section. Through the lobby windows, she watched them embrace in the elevator. Nathan's hands intimately placed on Vanessa's waist, Vanessa's fingers tangled in his hair. They were laughing about something, completely at ease in their betrayal. Sophia sat in her car for hours, numb with shock as memories realigned themselves. Subtle clues she'd dismissed, explanations she'd accepted without question, late nights and weekend conferences that had seemed legitimate, all of it now colored by this new reality. When she finally drove home, Sophia didn't cry. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine and opened her laptop. If Nathan could lead a double life, she could certainly plan her next steps carefully. This wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about justice. And for that, she would need more than just suspicions and hotel receipts. Tomorrow, she would begin gathering everything she needed. Tonight, she would mourn the marriage she thought she had. Gathering evidence, Sophia's office became her war room over the following weeks. While maintaining a facade of normalcy at home, she methodically documented Nathan's deceptions. Each evening after he left to work late, she carefully examined financial records spanning their 15-year marriage. "I should have seen this years ago," she whispered to herself, noting discrepancies in their joint accounts. Small transfers, never enough to raise immediate concern, had been flowing regularly into an unknown account. Forensic accounting was her profession, yet she'd failed to apply those skills to her own marriage. Sophia created spreadsheets documenting every suspicious transaction, noting dates that corresponded with Nathan's business trips. She photographed his text messages while he showered, screenshot email notifications that appeared on his tablet, and recorded his mileage against the destinations he claimed to visit. One rainy Tuesday, while Nathan attended what he called a client dinner, Sophia visited their safe deposit box at the bank. Inside, she discovered documents for an offshore account and ownership papers for a vacation property in the mountains, one she'd never heard of. She photographed everything, her hands steady despite the betrayal cutting deeper. "Mrs. Mercer, will your husband be joining you today?" the bank manager asked politely. "Not today," Sophia replied with a practiced smile. "He's tied up with work, just doing some routine organization." At home, Sophia installed a small recording device beneath the console of Nathan's car and synced his phone's location services to her laptop. Each night, she tracked his movements, confirming her suspicions as the dot on the screen repeatedly stopped at Vanessa's apartment complex. Most painful were the discoveries of the personal nature. A hidden phone with intimate photos of Vanessa, hotel selfies showing them in locations Nathan had claimed to visit alone for work, and messages detailing their plans for after he left Sophia. "Once the divorce is final, we'll sell the house and use her settlement to fund the investment property." One message read, "She won't fight it. She never questions anything." The most damning evidence came from Nathan's private email account, accessed when he carelessly left himself logged in on their home computer. Correspondence with his financial advisor revealed plans to hide assets before filing for divorce himself, a process he planned to initiate after transferring the bulk of their joint funds to accounts Sophia couldn't access. "Patient Zero should be moved offshore before proceedings begin," the advisor had written, using the code name for their primary investment account, the one funded largely by Sophia's inheritance from her parents. Throughout this information-gathering phase, Sophia maintained a careful performance. She prepared his favorite meals, responded to his increasingly infrequent affections, and never once indicated her knowledge. When Nathan mentioned a week-long conference in Boston, she offered to drive him to the airport, then tracked his phone directly to Vanessa's apartment, where he remained for the duration. Each night, alone in their bed, Sophia added to her evidence folder photographs, financial records, location data, recordings, text messages, a comprehensive documentation of betrayal that grew more substantial by the day. "You seem distant lately," Nathan commented one evening, looking up from his phone. "Everything okay at work?" Sophia smiled, the expression not reaching her eyes. "Just focused on some complicated accounts," she replied. "Nothing I can't handle." Unexpected allies. The cafe bustled with morning commuters as Sophia sat across from Marco Rivera, her college friend who had become one of the city's most respected private investigators. His expression remained professional, but his eyes revealed concern as he reviewed the evidence she'd gathered. "This is thorough work, Soph," Marco said quietly. "Better than most of what comes across my desk." "Are you sure you want me to dig deeper?" Sophia stirred her untouched tea. "I need to know everything, Marco. Especially the financial angles. He's hiding more. I can feel it." Marco nodded, making notes. "I'll be discreet. But you should talk to a lawyer today. I can recommend someone who specializes in high-asset divorces with," he paused, searching for the right words, "complicated circumstances." That afternoon, Sophia met with Elise Wong, a divorce attorney whose reputation for handling complex financial deceptions preceded her. The sleek downtown office felt like a fortress compared to Sophia's crumbling home life. "Your documentation is impressive," Elise noted, reviewing the files Sophia had brought. "Most clients come to me with suspicions." "You've brought evidence." "It's what I do professionally," Sophia replied, "though I never thought I'd apply those skills to my own marriage." Elise's expression softened momentarily before returning to brisk efficiency. "Here's what happens next. We'll file for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. Before we do, we need to secure your financial position. Are you prepared for him to know that you know?" Sophia took a deep breath. "Not yet. I need to protect myself first." Under Elise's guidance, Sophia opened new individual accounts at different banks, secured her personal documents, and created digital backups of everything. She redirected her upcoming salary payments, secured a separate credit card, and began researching apartments. Meanwhile, Marco's investigation uncovered further deceptions. Nathan and Vanessa had been involved for nearly 3 years. not months as Sophia had assumed. More disturbingly, they had established a shell company that had been receiving consulting fees from Sophia's own accounting firm, funneled through clients Nathan had brought in. "They've been using your professional connections to build their nest egg," Marco explained during their next meeting. "The shell company is registered to Vanessa's sister, but all funds go directly to accounts they jointly control." By Friday, Sophia had moved her most treasured possessions to a storage unit: family photos, irreplaceable mementos, and items from her life before Nathan. She'd secured a furnished apartment with a 6-month lease, paying in advance from her personal savings account that Nathan didn't know existed. "We'll file on Monday," Elise confirmed during their final preparatory meeting. "The financial restraining order will freeze all joint assets immediately. Are you ready for what comes next?" Sophia nodded, feeling strangely calm. "What about his plan to hide our assets?" Elise smiled, a sharp, confident expression. "Thanks to your evidence and Marco's investigation, we're one step ahead. The judge will see everything, including his attempts to hide assets before filing. In my experience, judges particularly dislike being lied to about financial disclosures." That night, as Nathan announced another early meeting for Sunday morning, Sophia packed the last of her overnight bag. Tomorrow, while he was with Vanessa, she would move to her new apartment. By the time he returned, the divorce papers would be filed, accounts frozen, and Sophia Mercer would be beginning her life anew. "Sleep well?" Nathan called absently as he left their bedroom to check email downstairs. "I will," Sophia replied, knowing it would be the last night she would spend under the same roof as her husband. For the first time in months, she meant it. Courtroom revelation. The county courthouse buzzed with subdued conversations as Sophia sat beside Elise, her posture perfect despite having barely slept. Across the aisle, Nathan looked uncharacteristically disheveled, his usually immaculate appearance marred by dark circles and a poorly knotted tie. Beside him sat his attorney, Richard Parsons, known for aggressive tactics and high fees. "They look nervous," Elise whispered, nodding subtly toward Nathan and Vanessa, who sat directly behind him in the first row of spectators. "They should be." 6 weeks had passed since Sophia had moved out and filed for divorce. Nathan's initial shock had quickly transformed to fury, then calculated confidence as he assembled his legal team. His first move had been to claim Sophia had abandoned their marriage, emptied accounts, and was attempting to rob him of his rightful assets. Judge Teresa Morales entered the courtroom, her reputation for fairness and intolerance for deception well known in legal circles. After preliminary statements, Nathan's attorney presented their case first, painting a picture of Sophia as a cold, calculating woman who had planned her exit while poor Nathan remained devoted to saving their marriage. "My client has built his business from nothing," Parsons declared. "Mrs. Mercer now seeks to claim half of his life's work despite contributing minimally to its success." Sophia maintained her composure, though her nails dug into her palms beneath the table. Elise had prepared her for this: the character assassination, the financial revisionism, the carefully constructed narrative that ignored 15 years of shared life and partnership. When Elise rose for cross-examination, her approach was methodical rather than confrontational. "Mr. Mercer, please confirm these are your banking records," Elise began, presenting the first of many exhibits. "They appear to be, yes," Nathan replied with practiced confidence. "And this offshore account in the Cayman Islands, you've testified it doesn't exist, correct?" Nathan shifted. "That's correct." "Interesting," Elise replied, producing documentation from the bank. "Because these records show monthly transfers from your business account to this supposedly non-existent account. Transfers that began 3 years ago, coinciding precisely with your relationship with Ms. Mitchell." The courtroom tensed as Elise systematically dismantled Nathan's financial claims. Bank records, property deeds, corporate filings, each document contradicted his sworn statements. Most damning was the revelation of the shell company receiving payments from Sophia's own firm. "Do you recognize this voice, Mr. Mercer?" Elise asked, playing a recording where Nathan explicitly discussed hiding assets before the divorce. "Objection," Parsons shouted. "This recording was obtained without my client's consent." "Actually," Elise countered smoothly, These conversations occurred in Mr. Mercer's vehicle, registered jointly to both parties. Mrs. Mercer had every legal right to install recording devices in her own property, particularly when she suspected financial impropriety affecting joint assets. Judge Morales overruled the objection, her expression darkening as the evidence mounted. By afternoon, Nathan's confident facade had crumbled. When Vanessa was called to testify about the shell company registered to her sister, she faltered under Elise's precise questioning, eventually admitting their plan to use Sophia's professional connections and portions of her inheritance to fund their post-divorce life together. "And these text messages," Elise continued, displaying screenshots on the courtroom monitor, "where you and Mr. Mercer discuss, and I quote, 'draining the accounts before she notices.' You were referring to Mrs. Mercer's inheritance used to purchase their primary residence, correct?" Vanessa glanced at Nathan, who stared straight ahead. "Yes," she finally admitted. The most powerful moment came when Elise presented documentation of Nathan's attempt to transfer funds after the financial restraining order had been issued, a direct violation of court orders. "Your Honor," Elise concluded, "the evidence demonstrates not only marital infidelity but systematic financial deception, perjury in sworn statements, and contempt for this court's orders. Mr. Mercer has hidden assets, lied under oath, and attempted to defraud both Mrs. Mercer and this court." When court adjourned for the day, Sophia noticed Nathan and Vanessa arguing intensely in the hallway, their unified front visibly fracturing under the weight of exposed lies. Judge Morales announced she would issue her ruling the following morning. That night, Sophia sat alone in her new apartment, feeling strangely hollow despite the day's victories. Vindication, she was discovering, felt nothing like happiness. Yet beneath the sadness lay something new, a quiet strength and certainty about her future that had been absent for too long. Balanced scales. Morning sunlight streamed through the courtroom windows as Judge Morales delivered her ruling. Sophia sat motionless, aware of Nathan's tense presence across the aisle, but refusing to meet his gaze. Vanessa was noticeably absent from the spectator section. After reviewing all evidence presented, Judge Morales began, her tone measured but firm. "This court finds overwhelming evidence of financial misconduct, deliberate concealment of marital assets, and violation of court orders by the respondent, Nathan Mercer." The judge methodically outlined her decision, awarding Sophia the primary residence, her full retirement accounts, and 50% of all business interests, including those Nathan had attempted to hide. More surprisingly, she granted Sophia additional compensatory damages for the financial fraud perpetrated through the shell company that had diverted funds from Sophia's firm. Furthermore, the judge continued, Mr. Mercer's attempts to transfer assets after the restraining order constitute contempt of court. I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to financial fraud and perjury. Nathan's face drained of color as the ruling continued. His attorney scribbled furious notes, already planning an appeal that both knew would likely fail given the mountain of evidence. Finally, Judge Morales concluded, looking directly at Nathan, the court awards Mrs. Mercer her full legal fees, to be paid from Mr. Mercer's remaining assets. This case represents one of the most egregious examples of matrimonial deception and financial misconduct this court has encountered. The ruling is so ordered. As the gavel fell, Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Elise squeezed her hand beneath the table, a small gesture of triumph and solidarity. In the hallway afterward, Nathan approached Sophia, his expression a complex mixture of anger, shock, and something that might have been regret. "This isn't over," he began, his voice low. "You've destroyed everything I built." "You destroyed it yourself, Nathan," Sophia replied calmly. "I simply exposed the truth. Vanessa and I broke up last night," Sophia finished for him, remembering Marco's text that morning. Apparently, she's reconsidering her choices after yesterday's revelations about potential criminal charges. Funny how quickly 15 years can become inconvenient when facing legal consequences. For the first time since discovering his betrayal, Sophia saw genuine devastation in Nathan's eyes, not for losing her, but for losing everything else, his reputation, financial security, and the woman he'd chosen over their marriage. She felt no satisfaction in his pain, only a peaceful certainty that justice had been served. 6 months later, Sophia sat in the garden of her home, truly hers now, reviewing the final paperwork from Elise. Nathan's appeal had been denied, and he'd accepted a plea deal on the lesser financial charges. The newspaper had covered the story briefly, focusing on the professional ethics violations rather than the personal betrayal. Vanessa had moved to another state, her professional reputation in tatters after the revelations about the shell company. Sophia's doorbell rang, announcing Marco's arrival for their weekly dinner. Their friendship had deepened during the investigation and court proceedings, gradually evolving into something neither had expected, but both welcomed. Tonight, he was bringing takeout and plans for a weekend hike, simple pleasures that had become the foundation of Sophia's new life. "You look happy," Marco observed as they set the table together, the easy domesticity of the moment striking after the chaos of the past year. "I am," Sophia realized, the truth of it settling comfortably, not because of what happened to Nathan, but because of what happened to me. What had begun in betrayal had transformed her, stripping away illusions, but revealing strength she hadn't known she possessed. The judge's ruling had been just the beginning. The true victory had been rebuilding a life entirely her own, balanced on the scales of both justice and personal renewal. As evenings settled around them, Sophia recognized that while the painful chapters couldn't be erased, they no longer defined her story. Ahead lay unwritten pages filled with possibilities entirely of her own making, a future where balance had finally been restored.